Right, okay, let's get going. So, there's a bit of theory in there, but it'll always tie in to the practical so you can apply it. So if you get a bit lost with something, bear with me, because there will be a point to it, okay? Well, hopefully the more you understand about it, the more you're able to apply it yourself, all right? So we're going to talk about training first, and then a little bit about food on the end. The first bit of training, I'll talk about how training affects your muscles, and then after that, we'll go into the fat loss and side of things, all right? Right, so just using this, I've given you one of these because basically that'll be the itinerary I'm going through. So to start with, I've said there, in terms of toning or growing a muscle, the only way it'll happen is by lifting something that's reasonably heavy, okay? So when we're in a pump class or something like that, the weight is too light to elicit a change that you need to change your muscles shape, all right? Now, if you have a look, so we can skip down there, there's a little table, yeah? And I've just got rep range, got, it says protein breakdown or degradation, and mechanical work. Right, all this means, so obviously rep range, we know what this means, 1, 10, 20, whatever. So I've grouped them into 3 groups. Typically, if people train below rep range, they'll go somewhere between 1 and 5, okay? If we're going medium rep range, we're saying about 6 to 15, and then a high rep range, we're calling it 15 plus, okay? Now, if you're trying to get as strong as possible, people tend to use this. So power lifters, Olympic lifters, they'll hardly ever lift something more than 5 times. Because ultimately, their goal is to lift something once as heavy as possible. Makes sense? So there's no point in them learning how to lift things repeatedly. Typically, people who are trying to work on their physique, bodybuilders, people trying to tone, work in this rep range. And then this one, which you'll see in like a pump class or endurance athletes, this is more endurance, right? And I'll explain why. This one, protein breakdown, all I mean by that, when you lift something, in your muscle, it'll break down the proteins into amino acids a little bit. And then they get made back into proteins, okay? Now, you need a high rate of that to turn over protein and grow and shape the muscle. Does that make sense? This one, I'm supposing that this isn't your maximum, by the way. So I'm not saying you pick a lightweight and lift it 5 times and it'll work. I mean, between 1 and 5 times, this going as high as the biggest weight you go for that many reps. Make sense? So this one, if you're lifting something only 1, 3, 5 times, the rate of breakdown in the muscle is really, really high. Okay? Therefore here, we've kind of got a moderate. Now we've got something that we can lift like 30 times. The rate of protein breakdown is actually quite low, because you can quite easily do it for most of the set. So that one would be low. This one here, mechanical work, so that's the total amount of weight that we're lifting. So say I get a bench press and I can lift once, I can only lift about 140 kilos. So my total mechanical work is actually quite low. Now if I can lift 10 times, I might be able to lift 100 kilos. So then I'm suddenly moving 1,000 kilos. You with me? So the mechanical work is higher, the more the higher the rep rate. So here again, medium, high. Because then I might be able to lift a 70 kilo barbell 25 times. Does that make sense, that there? Okay. Now for a muscle to change shape, you need basically the mix between maximum protein breakdown so that you're building more after, but also actually doing plenty of mechanical work within a session. So that's why this one tends to be the best for the tone and the shape, that sort of thing. As well, most people don't have unless you're highly trained, to lift a weight with a good technique, you don't tend to have the neural capacity to lift something really heavy this many times without it being a bit sloppy. So I rarely train people here. Here, I mean, as I said, it's good for endurance, but you're hardly breaking down any protein, so in terms of changing the shape and size, it doesn't make much difference. Make sense? Okay. If you look a little bit above there, I've talked about different types of fibers. So I've written slow twitch, fast twitch. Now, can we guess, I suppose, if we're working at this range, which fibers would we use? Slow twitch or faster twitch? Do we know? If we're really heavy. No. That's alright. Right, hold on, I'll explain this one as well. Let me wipe this. So basically, the fast twitch ones, they're big, the actual muscle fibers are quite big, and they can produce big contractions. Okay, so the fast twitch fibers are bigger, they can produce bigger contractions. Slow twitch fibers are smaller, they can only produce small contractions, right? So we had it on a scale, that is. Right, so here's your slow twitch, which is small. Here's your fast twitch, which are big. Now your body is lazy, it will do the easiest thing possible. So if it can get away with only having to use these to move something, it will. Okay? Now the other thing about these ones is they're very good endurance wear. So they can recover quickly. These ones are powerful, but they get tired quickly. Okay? Makes sense? So this is why you'll see a marathon runner will be quite slight. They won't have much muscle mass to them. Even though they train hours and hours a day, because they tend to use these. They're never doing a maximal contraction, they're just doing repeat work over and over again. So they're just using the little ones, which are then getting tired but then recovering, and that's why Mo Farah is a small man. Okay? Whereas a sprinter, for example, and Usain Bolt or someone like that, they're producing maximal contractions, only working for 10 seconds. Now they therefore recruit these ones. Obviously, if you ask Usain Bolt to try and sprint for a mile, he'd slow down because these get tired, and you have to use these. Are we with me now? So hence why, if you're lifting something 1 to 5 times as heavy as possible, you need to use these ones. If you can lift something 30 times, your body says, I don't need to use these. These get fatigued really quickly. They're very energy inefficient. I can just use these ones. So again, to change your size and shape, you want to be leaning on the end of using these ones. That makes sense? Okay. So that's why underneath there, I've got those rep ranges where I've written 1 to 5 is basically good for strength. That's 6 to 12 gets the good mix of using these whilst still doing quite a lot of overall work. And whereas over 15 is better for endurance. Could have done with weight now. Right, now the rest time kind of works inversely with the rep range. So if we're going 1 to 5, it's good for strength. But because those big motor units take a long time to recover, the rest time tends to be longer. So you're looking at probably 2+ minutes. Okay? Here, typically, which is the best for all hypertrophy, if we come across this term before, it just means increase in fiber size. It just means the muscles get bigger, that's all. That you're typically looking probably 1 to 2 minutes, something like that. And then this 15 plus for the endurance, you're probably looking at no more than a minute. So where do I want to do? So we want to be that way a bit. Because here they can recover quickly, you don't need as much rest. Here we're using a mixture of both. Here they need a lot of rest. Make sense? Right. We turn over, let's turn over the next one. You got any questions about any of that? So it's a bit more in depth than what we used to put in. No? Okay. Right, on that next one. I got an old paint and made a little picture for you, right? Now that explains what actually goes on in the muscle to make it change shape, right? So if the muscles, if we start at this size, all right, and all these things are, so the little black bits are on there, what number you got there? I've got it. The red bits, yeah. They're the actual muscle fibers that make you move, okay? The bit around it, it's called sarcoplasm. It's just full of like glycogen, blood, water, things like that. It's the fluid in the muscle. Now there's two main ways that the muscles change shape. One is you get stronger and therefore the fibers themselves get bigger. Okay, that comes from more of that low rep range stuff. With longer rests, and you actually make these fibers bigger and therefore the muscle itself appears bigger. Okay? If you look at a bodybuilder and you look at an Olympic weightlifter, the Olympic weightlifter undoubtedly at a high level will be stronger, but they won't look as big as the bodybuilder. With me. That's because of this second one, where actually, when you're using that sort of mid to high rep range, then you just, you know, when you'll have noticed yourself, you sort of pump a muscle that seems to be bigger. There's lots of blood and nutrients going to it. If you do that, you eventually swell the cell here, and then that means that this, even though the fibers haven't got that much bigger, the surrounding bits got bigger. Okay? So that's why if we're after maximum muscle growth, you're after a mixture between this and this. Can we guess which one actually, it says in the thing that you've read, well, which one actually gives you more size, if you like? Do we know? Any idea? It's a bottle 50-50. Yeah, this one. So actually, especially when ladies go, I don't want to lift weights that are too heavy because they'll make me bulky or whatever. But actually this one contributes to more of the size than this one. Like I say, hence why the bodybuilder's larger than the powerlifter. This one really contributes to more of a tone look, like a density to the muscle, whereas this one's the more sort of inflated kind of thing. So really, if we're looking just for tone, you will really want to be on the heavier end rather than the high rep end. That makes sense? I've written a note there somewhere about most of you lot know because I know you, but ladies are always petrified to get too big from lifting weights, but you won't see a muscular woman unless she's extremely committed, even in which case she won't be that big, or she's on drugs, right? You just don't have the genetic potential to grow all that much muscle. Really don't. Now the other thing about working on the strength and the fiber size is that the fiber is usable weight. And so that's the thing that contributes to boosting your metabolism as well. So the more of that you have, the more you'll turn over calories at rest. So, alright? Right, now have you seen me when I'm come down here, I speak a little bit about, towards the bottom of the second page, start of third page, and talk a little bit about tempo. And if you've done stuff with me or you've seen me doing classes, you see sometimes in counting people, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and this sort of thing. The tempo really, the tension on the muscle is more important than the weight. So your muscle doesn't know how much weight you're lifting. This is, for you, for people I'm seeing there, it's not as much of a problem. So when you see in there the guys with the ego, and they're lifting too much weight, and there's a lot of this going on. And two things to do. One is, for example, if they're working on a bicep, and all your bicep does is one, it turns your palm over that way, and the other is it flexes the elbow. That's the two functions though. You'll see a lot of this. So one thing is they're using the back, they're using the front delt, they're using everything but their bicep to get the weight up. The second thing you'll see them do is every time you get to the top, it just drops down. So there's a concentric phase when the muscle shortens to lift the weight, but then it's still working, you're still breaking down muscle fibers, it's still in the tension on the lower. So it's got an eccentric phase, where the muscle's lengthening under tension. That phase is just as important as that one from in terms of stimulating muscle fibers. People, you hardly ever, Nina's waving up, you hardly ever see, well, it's a rarity that I see people really thinking about the lower phase as well as the different phase, but it's just as important. Now if you think, the time on the tension is probably more important than the repetition. So So if you lift something 20 times like this, you probably only get 8 out lifting it like this. But you get more tension from the 8 or wouldn't be going on. So I'll be worrying about the eccentric plate as well as the concept. Right, let's go to the next plate. Right, hold on, but don't look at it, put it away. Right, so I did say we look at what some of the best exercises for specific muscle groups. Right, so the top one I've got there is quadriceps, which are where? Quads, because there's, guess how many of them? Yeah. Right, so what do we think? What does it do? What does that muscle do? What's its function, do we know? Yeah, extend the knee joint basically. So going by that, what's some exercises? Say again? Squat always. Yeah, good. Now here's an interesting one. We can squat with weight on your back, or we can squat with weight around the front. Do we know which one will be better for? No. On the front. I'll explain why. So if you put a bar on your back, to stay balanced, you'll have to lean to keep the bar over your feet. Okay? Now that lean creates a bigger angle in your hip and less of an angle in your knee. If the weight's on the front, you can stay more upright. So that you see what happened there? The angle of my knee when I became upright became bigger. So weight around the front tends to be more. Well, they're both using both. Okay? Any others? There's a machine that isolates it. Well, actually, the leg press is one. Yeah. Oh, we can go further. Would you put your feet higher or lower to emphasize the top of your leg? You think when you've done it, what hurts it? Come on, Mick, you know this one. Lower, exactly. Because again, the higher your foot is, the less the angle in your knee, the bigger on your hip. So again? Lower, yeah. There's a leg extension machine, we use that sometimes, which obviously isolates that completely. If you've got a dodgy knee, I wouldn't use it, there's a lot of strain just on the thing. Right, so hamstrings. What about them? What's good for them? Say again? Anyone? Lunges are good. Because they've got the two functions in your hamstring. One is you bend your knee, and the other is stretch your hip. So a lunge does both of those things. Yeah. Again, so back squat, because we talked about the front squat, or deadlift, stiff leg deadlift, because that's again, it's anything where you're extending your hip. Okay? Shoulders, what have we got for shoulders? Lat pull down does use the shoulder. It's not the main one. The big one. Overhead is probably the one that uses the most. Yeah, perfect. Because basically the front of your shoulder does that, the side of your shoulder does that, the back does that. So that one there, lat pull down, is used. You can't really train your upper body without training your shoulders there. Well, pushing over the head is probably the best way. Okay? Bicep, we know what that does. Flexion of the elbow. And this. Well, that's quite actually, that is something that people neglect as well, because you can, if you lift the weight and you turn it as well while you go, then that will stimulate more than just being flat. Yeah. Tricep. Probably, yeah, good one just extending over the head that way. Or lying down, extending that way. But, I mean, it's something that you can isolate if you want to really work on it, but anytime we're doing a chest press or a push over the head, you use a both triceps. Back, what about your back? Any ideas? What does the muscles of your back do really? You know? They just bring your elbows from front and behind. Okay, so based on that, yeah, and row, yeah. Although the row machine, going back to what we talked about earlier, you'll do tons and tons of repetitions, but basically replicate the row machine motion or the heavier weight. Yeah. Do we have any machines that do that? Yeah. There is a seated row machine where you sit on it there. So the lat pull down is a really good one. What else have we got? That abs. Do any of us do exercises, perhaps?
Yeah.
The sit-ups is, you do, but the thing with a sit-up, it uses, there's muscles that flex your hip and here. And a sit-up mostly uses them rather than, because traditionally that is the classic ab exercise as well, sit-ups here. That's why really a crunch tends to be better, because your abs actually just flex your spine. Yeah, but again, I don't really like it because you end up doing the thing with the sit-up, just doing this. And actually, like I said, actually your abs do that. They don't change the angle of your hip. Does that make sense? Plank. Yeah. Now that is, when I talk about this, a concentric, the muscle shortens the lift. An eccentric, where the muscle lengthens. There's also an isometric, where the muscle stays still under tension. Say you're pushing something that doesn't move. It's still under tension, but nothing's changing shape. That's what a plank is. So your abs are still, but they're just making sure that you don't flop on the floor. That's an important thing in that. That's what the abs are mostly designed to do. Originally, they're just designed for us to stop falling, make sure we don't fall forward. Today, where then we just collapse in. So a plank is one way of doing it. But then whenever you're using, this is why I hardly ever use ab exercise with people. If you're doing a free weight exercise, then they're stabilising the whole thing. On a squat, especially a front squat, stopping you falling forward, they're under a lot of stress. Any sort of deadlift or row, they're stopping you falling in. So the fact that you pick up a good point there, when they're still, that's probably when they're best used really. That's another reason to take people away from machines a little bit and get used to free weight. Alright, right underneath at the bottom of that list, you have a look. On the third page. I've written biggest calorie burners like per unit of time. So we'll go on a bit more on the energy expender fat loss sort of end of things. So the exercises I've written are just the things that will tire you out in a short space of time, provided you've got the correct weight. Why them? Do we know why those exercises in particular? What is it about? So taking just the lifted ones, so I've said deadlift, squat, a push over the head, walking lunge. Why them in particular? What is it about them that burns more calories? More muscles, exactly. So the more muscles you can recruit, the more weight you can lift and the more energy you expend. So you're just looking for exercises that use as many joints as possible. That's why if someone's on a strictly fat loss program, doing something like, see people do like front raise or bicep curl, they're really isolated exercises. This muscle can't bring about that much energy expenditure. Whereas if you put that into a push, using this muscle, using your triceps, using your chest, so it's basically, that's why deadlift and squat in particular, they use the most of it. So a deadlift, you're using your calves are stabilizing things, your quads are extending your knee, hamstrings are extending your hip, your glutes are extending your hip, your lower back's extending your hip, your forearms are holding onto it, your abs are stabilizing it, the top of your back is helping to pull it, your shoulders are working. There's so many muscles working. And you'll know, basically, it's the exercise that you can lift the most weight. In terms of machines, what is the exercise you can lift the most weight? Leg press. I'm glad you said that. I was hoping someone would say something. Stop thinking. Exactly. Because quads, hamstrings, glutes. So it's the most muscles, but it's also the biggest muscles. So the biggest muscles are in the lower half. In the lower half. So that's why I often prioritise lower body training for our fat loss body and upper, because you can expend more energy. You've got to walk around all day on the legs. We couldn't walk around all day on the arms. Make sense? Right. And then I put in there a couple other little things. Like a farmer's walk is quite good, where all that is just holding on to a couple of weights that are a bit heavy for you. You can only just up and then walk a minute. Because it's the same kind of thing, you're using all the lower body muscles to move you, but your traps and your shoulders and your arms are working hard to keep hold of them. It's something that'll stress you out in a short space of time. Literally just find a couple of weights that you can just about hold on to. Some we've done this, like, love that with you, Louise, we've done it as well. Hard enough? Yes. Okay, good, the facial expression is good. Okay. Sprints, if we can do it as well. Obviously, I use bike sprints for a lot of people. We did some last week, I think. It's another one. It's just getting you to work at a high intensity. So the bike, I mean, actually, bike is alright because we're using big muscles in the lower half, and I find it very easy to reach with really high intensity on a bike as well. So if you use a cross trainer or treadmill, in a gym it's hard to really go 100% with this. It's just a bit impractical. Or on a bike, we can quickly just whiz around as quick as you can. So that's why I use a bike a lot of the time. Cross trainer, treadmill, row machine are good because they're whole body movements. So it's just difficult to reach absolute maximum intensity. But as I talked about the last time when I did a fat loss training, if you're working near a maximum intensity, so say you're working at 89%, you can probably only hold that for 30 seconds. So then you can use a cross trainer or a row or something for that. Something like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for doing people, or 40 seconds off, 20 seconds on, or something like that. You can use one of them when you're nearly at maximum intensity. If you're working at absolute maximum intensity, you need longer rest. Because, going back to what we talked about earlier, if you're working at maximum intensity using a big motor units, they need long time to recover. But they're the ones that will take longer to recover, therefore burning calories out of the gym. They're the ones that will cause your fibers to become a little bit bigger, boost your metabolism. So good to work on that. Right, Olympic lifts is something I've written in there, but they're big calorie burners. The reason I don't use them a lot, one, they're designed for just, do you know what I mean by Olympic lifts, by the way? I'm sorry, stop me if I'm saying something that you don't understand as well, sorry. So like, we did a little bit, like a few weeks ago, like a clean and jerk where they sort of, that sort of stuff, or a snatch, when the big guys at the Olympics, when they're basically chucking a huge weight over their head. Now again, they're using lots of muscle groups, lots of energy expenditure. One thing is that they're designed to be powerful, so the speed's got to be quick. And if we're trying to get, therefore the mechanical work, when we talked earlier about the mechanical work, can't really be that high with them, which is a problem. If it is, then usually your form starts to go, and I've written in brackets there, complex, because there's quite a lot of technique, a lot of teaching points, and it's quite easy to hurt yourself. So if you know how to do them, you've got someone who knows what they're doing with them, incorporating them can be good, but they're just a little bit complicated. Right, let's go a little bit below. Just a few notes on fat loss, aside from weight training. So I talked about this before. When you're working at a low intensity, this is why people, a while back, 20 years ago, you hear like the fat burning zone. And that's where when you're working at a lower intensity, your body will actually use fat as fuel. It's harder to break down fat than glycogen. Glycogen is the stuff you get from carbohydrates. Your body can make it from other sorts of food, but that's the stuff you'll store in your liver and your muscles. And that's really, it's got short little chains your body can take and use it straight away. If you're working at low intensity, it can happily burn fat. Obviously at a very slow rate, if you're going for a walk or something like that. If you're working at high intensity, it needs to deliver energy straight away. So it will tend to use the glycogen. So people think, oh, all of this fat, like the fat burning one. But actually, as I've written there, if you're burning up all the glycogen in your muscles, it frees up the fat that then be used later on. Because your body will still use glycogen when it can. So if you burn up all that, then you'll have to use the fat to fuel. That makes sense? Right, so with there, low intensity, burn the fat. Yeah, as I've said there, if you're going to use the gym, I don't know, there's a joking about people driving to the gym and walking on the treadmill. And you see that a lot, really. You might as well just go for the walk in the first place. If you've got access to all this equipment, and you're allotted an hour of your day, you want to use that as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So working at a low intensity, it's not going to do you any harm, but at the same time, it's not going to do you all that much good. The medium intensity stuff, so that's like going for a jog, using any of the CV stuff where it's just at a pace that's a little bit uncomfortable. That's what I see a lot of people doing. Now that will, if you'll take yourself out your comfort zone a little, that'll increase your cardiovascular efficiency. So your heart gets a bit bigger, more red blood cells, more capillaries. But what it works on, when I had those big circles before, it's the smaller circles working over and over and over again. They're the ones that won't really change shape. They're the ones that are very energy efficient. But trying to lose fat, we want to be energy inefficient. Makes sense? And so you just train yourself to be fitter and fitter and fitter and to do that exercise more easily with less energy expenditure. So from a purely, you're in the gym, you're burning calories for new work, yes. But then the metabolic effects after that are it's just slowing your body down, making you more efficient. So that's why I don't really use that in terms of fat loss. If you're playing a sport, fair enough, because you're going to be doing it at medium intensity and you want it. It's always about being specific to what you're trying to achieve. So that's good for that, but from a purely fat loss point of view, it's not efficient use of your time. Hence the high intensity, which can either be by intensity as well. People get confused about the definition of intensity. By intensity, I mean a percentage of your maximum work. So if you can do something for half an hour, over and over and over and over, you might go off and like be really out of breath and say it's really hard, it's so intense. You've got the definition of intensity a bit mixed up. If you'd have split that up and rested, you would have been able to actually work harder. Does that make sense? So by high intensity, I'm talking about the absolute highest intensity would be me giving you a weight you could only lift once. And you lift that would be the highest intensity possible. So by high intensity, I'm talking about the thing that exhausts you in a short space of time. And so that can be with weight training. Sometimes, I've had lots of people lose tons and tons of weight without ever touching a bit of cardio kit, just weight training. If the rest are short enough as well, people say, oh, it's bad for your blood pressure and your cardiovascular. You can get adaptation for that from just lifting weights as well. For weight training or sprinting, that's the high intensity that I bring at the bottom there. So it's using those big lower units that are energy inefficient, take a long time to recover, burn calories in and out of the gym, makes you stronger. They're the things that can change your shape. You're mostly burning the glycogen, but like I say, it frees up the fat for the rest of the time. Make sense? Any questions about anything there? Let's go to the last page. So talked a little bit about, obviously, I did a general nutrition presentation a few weeks back, but this one is more geared towards it, just specifically looking from a muscle tonal gain plus fat loss point of view. So protein, carbohydrates, fats. I went through that last time what they are. Protein is for growth and repair of cells. Carbohydrate is for energy. Fat is for energy. It's for insulation. It's to carry vitamins. It's for cholesterol that you need. They're all needed, but it's the ratios. Obviously, overall calories will come to the end. The ratio is important as well. The protein, I've suggested there, you take your body weight, times it by about in kilos. So say, I'm easy one, that max is the best because I'm 100 kilos. So if I times that by 1.5, that'll give me 150 grams. If I was just trying to maintain a reasonable level of muscle mass and I wasn't extremely active, I would say that would be a good baseline to go on. Now, I've written their best sources of protein. Lean meat, fish, eggs, they're the best. But we know protein comes in better and worse quality forms. So the problem with being vegetarian from a protein point of view is that you've got complete proteins and incomplete proteins. All right? Incomplete, so a complete protein has got all the proteins get broken down into amino acids. They're all the little bits. A complete protein's got all of them that you need for your cells. An incomplete protein's only got some of them. Now, the complete ones tend to be from animal sources. So that's why if you're vegetarian, you need to get your protein from lots and lots of different places. So I've written some suggestions there, but seeds, pulses, lentils, things like that. Soy actually is quite a good source of protein. But protein is not just protein, so if you're eating it out of steak or you're eating it out of beans, steak will be more useful to your body than the beans. That makes sense? Now up there I've written, if you're trying to actually really emphasize muscle tone gain, 2 to 3 grams of protein per kilo body weight is absolutely fine. And it's probably better to make sure you're getting as much as possible in. The other thing about protein, it doesn't play around with your blood sugar too much, getting you hungry. It keeps you full. It's the one that takes the most calories to your body to digest. So keeping that one certainly as a constant is probably the best for your body composition. Right, below that we've got carbohydrate. That's the one that gets the biggest, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, that's the one that's got the most sodium. stick in the media and most diets that play around with. There's people who should like I've heard of paleo diets, things like that, eat like our ancestors that would be very low carb, Atkins diet low carb, Yukon diet low carb. There's an argument that we didn't really evolve to eat a lot of carbohydrate. To an extent, I agree with that. If we're training a lot in the gym though, it is useful as a means of getting more energy. So I deliberately will eat, I'll try and get out of good sources like oats and sweet potatoes. I'll deliberately eat something that helps me sort of lift more weight, do more work in the gym. So that's what I think I've written it there. I basically call some carbohydrate a supplement. So it's an energy supplement. But if we're relatively sedentary or if we're deliberately trying to lose weight, it's just unnecessary. The other thing I've written there, there's such a thing as essential amino acids. When something's essential, if you've heard of essential fat, omega, this, that, 3, 6, that is called essential because your body can't make it itself. So you need to get out of your diet, otherwise your body can't function properly. That's what essential means in this term. So there's such a thing as essential amino acids. So there's some stuff we need to get out of protein food because your body can't make it. There's essential fatty acids. Your body can't make them, it needs to get them out of food. There's no such thing as essential carbohydrate. Carbohydrate gets broken down to glycogen, and your body, you get that, well, your body can do that out of protein and fat, it can make that into it if it needs to. So that's why it's the least essential. Depends on your tolerance, and it depends on your lifestyle as well, doesn't it? If you go to eat out, I know you know this, if you go to eat out somewhere, then it's very difficult to avoid eating a large amount of it. Typically though, as I've written there, most people are able to deal with about 200 to 300 grams of it a day. Most people. Depends. So when you eat carbohydrate, you produce insulin. You can produce a certain amount of units of insulin to deal with it. If you're diabetic, then we've got a problem with that. You become set that you can't take insulin takes the sugar from the blood into the tissues. If we keep spiking insulin, you get resistant to it. And so then the sugar can't get out of the blood into the muscle because the tissue is no longer responding to it. Does that make sense? Now, a lot of people are a little bit down the line from that, especially in this society where we eat lots of that kind of food. The extreme end of that is you develop type 2 diabetes, in which case you have got to be careful because as soon as the sugar gets in the blood from the food, it wants to go into the muscles or the liver. Produce insulin so it goes there, but the tissues are resistant to it, they don't care. And so you just produce more insulin, that's not good for your health. So eating that with a mixed meal tends to blunt that response. So if you're eating your carbohydrates, rather than eating them on their own, eating them with some protein, with some fats, it blunts that response. But yeah, I would, as a baseline, probably a couple hundred grams at most a day, unless you deliberately have to performance in that. Fats, you will want them to make up the rest of your calories. Low-fat diets are not good for you, really. So cholesterol gets a bad rep. You need cholesterol for lots of processes to transport things around the body. We need a lot of vitamins. Vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin A. They're only soluble in fat. You need fat for them. So a low-fat diet, not a particularly good idea. But you've got to find a balance. The thing that is bad is a high-fat, high-carbohydrate diet. That's probably the main culprit for obesity. There's got to be a trade-off there. Like I say, the protein, I would keep that baseline suggested there. The carbs and the fats, then you have to make a compromise between. Both of those are the two things that will most lead to actual adiposity. And if you're mixing them, it's a bad idea. So, moderate protein, lowish carb, moderate fat tends to work best. Right, at the bottom there, if we're looking to lose weight, this is something else we talked about like the last one. Probably all you want, if you have any idea of how many calories you eat a day, roughly minus 200 is usually a good way to go to lose weight at a sustainable rate. Won't be dramatic, but you're probably a pound or two a week likely if you're on about a 200 calorie deficit. If you go to more, then you'll lose it faster. But long term, you're more likely to put it back on. So if I talked about this last time, metabolism slows down if you drop your calories too low. The other way you can do it though, and I've done this myself recently, keep your calories the same, and you just need to increase the volume and or intensity of the training. So if you're in 3 times a week, you do 4 or 5 times a week. If you do 20 sets of weights in a session, you start doing 30 sets of weights in a session. It's just going to be a balance between the intake and the expenditure. All right. With the training though, keeping it high intensity stops you from lowering your metabolism. Lots and lots of moderate low intensity, plus on its own will serve to slow your metabolism a little bit. Low calories will do it. So when you can come in and do loads of cardio and eat hardly any calories, that's the recipe for disaster long term. Make sense? Right, we've got any questions about anything at all? Did a lot of talking there and no one else did. Any questions about anything? Yeah, go on.
With the protein, where does that come into weight loss? Do you still, like, you said like for muscle training, 2 kilograms, what would you do if you try to lose weight? Is that,
I would keep that on the highish end. That, like I said, that is the one that is least likely going to result in you putting on fat of all of those 3. And it's the one that said that will keep you fullest the longest, so you live directly less, although not necessarily what all want to do. And it's the one that will burn, your body is hardest to break down, will burn the most calories when you break it down. So if anything, you could use that scale and go on the higher end. The more you're aiming for fat loss, you'd probably be up towards 2 probably grams. Okay, no body weight there. Whole forms as well, not processed forms. So processed food tends to have additives that can be possibly toxic to it. It can be broken down more easily by the body. Even just as simple as peanuts versus peanut butter. Peanut butter is just ground up peanuts really. But the peanut butter is already, some of the digestion's been done for you, it's been broken down. So your body can absorb it like that. There you go. This is, and then smoothies as well. Smoothies and juice diets are quite popular. But same thing, if you're actually eating in the whole form, your body's got to break it down as well. And a lot of the fibre, the antioxidants and things are contained in the solid form fruit, not the juice. So always go for the whole form over the processed form. Anything else? Okay. I'll do that. All right.